Office Aureum, or Golden Core of the Heart. Members of this group are Emory University alumni who graduated 50 or more years ago. University in their gowns of office, the President's Cabinet, the Deans, distinguished university administrators, faculty and student award recipients, student ministers and vocalists, the honorary degree recipients, and the Bedell of the university who is carrying the university's mace. President James W. Wagner, the 19th president of Emory University, marches at the end of the procession wearing the gold Presidential Medallion of Office. Ladies and gentlemen, the platform party.
These proceedings will now come to order. Welcome.
You may. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, Emory trustees, faculty, candidates, and all who have given so much to nurture and support those who graduate today, a great good morning to you. Honored to have on this platform three special guests who have distinguished themselves in the fields of humanitarianism, architecture, and creative writing. You'll find brief biographies of these three eminent individuals on pages 6 and 7 of the commencement program. And so before we confer the degrees in course, it is our privilege this morning to present Emory's highest honor, the doctoral degree honoris causa. Jan Love, will you present our first honored guest?
Mr. President.
Madam Dean.
I have the honor to place the name of Madame Marguerite Baron-Keetsy in candidacy to receive the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters.
Dean Lisa Tedesco, will you present our second honored guest?
Mr. President,
Madam Dean. Dean Robin Foreman, will you present our third honored guest?
Mr. President,
Mr. Dean.
I have the great honor to present to you Ms. Rita Dove to receive the degree of Doctor of Letters.
Rita Dove, poet, professor, diviner of mysteries. Drawing strength and inspiration from filial memory and from the nuanced ambiguities of history, you eavesdrop on the gods and sidle up to the answers that resist the approach of those of us less gifted. You reclaim from willed neglect or pained obscurity stories of heartache and courage and love, despair that reveal humanity, shaped by a double narrative, by ode and elegy, by anthem and lament. In your retelling, you hold forth hope for the birth of a new people, redeemed by words and by common understanding. Through your artistry, you magnify the glinting light of your own mind's many-faceted and generously illuminate the world of beauty that formerly was hidden. For the ways by which you teach us to look with one keen eye, for wisdom's detail, we bestow on you the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa. Congratulations and thank you. Now at this time, I would like to ask Ms. Dove, Dr. Dove, I should say, to deliver our keynote address this morning.
President Wagner, esteemed faculty and alumni, the diligent Board of Trustees, long-suffering, now relieved parents, jubilant relatives and friends, but foremost you, the graduating class of 2013. What a glorious morning. Congratulations. You know, asking a poet to speak at a commencement seems both a no-brainer and a curious dare. After all, poets deal with words all the time, but they also strive to distill language down to the most necessary syllables into the most haunting song. So the prospect of addressing a new generation of young adults who are coming from an eclectic range of disciplines, all of you gathered one last time on this quadrangle before scattering in whatever directions your passions will take you. Well, I can't help thinking of what Mark Twain said about the biblical Adam. What a good thing Adam had, he said. When he said a good thing, he knew nobody had said it before. So let me say a few good things that couldn't be truer. I am extremely delighted to be here today at a place of higher learning with a distinguished history regarding the literary arts. Emory's manuscript archives and rare book library houses the papers of Flannery O'Connor and Salman Rushdie, Alice Walker, and Seamus Heaney, among others. And in the Raymond Donofsky Poetry Library, under its curator Kevin Young, you can find such delicacies as W.B. Yeats's Letters to Maud Gonne and Langston Hughes's editions corrected in the poet's own hand. I could go on and on. But there's another reason. As gossip rags might say, Emory and I have a history together. Whenever I visited your campus over the past decade or so, be it under the auspices of the Department of English or the Center for Women, the Department of African American Studies, or the James Weldon Johnston Institute, which its founder, the late scholar Rudolph Byrd, ran so successfully. Each and every time, I was impressed by an interdisciplinary energy that also included the drama and music schools. And of course, there's Natasha Trethewey, with whom I not only share the distinction of the Pulitzer Prize and the position of U.S. Poet Laureate, but a poetic and personal bond ever since I chose her first book manuscript 14 years ago from a pile of anonymous submissions as the winner of the Cave Canem, inaugural Cave Canem Poetry Prize. But these are just a few of the resources that sustain Emory's legacy as an outstanding liberal arts institution. Treasures I hope that you, dear graduates, have made use of on your paths to finding, as Garrison Keillor might say, the answers to some of life's persistent questions. As you prepare to enter the workplace or move toward further studies or plan on traveling the continents, I fervently hope that you will remember and stand firm in defending this legacy of education against the threats of fiscal strain and the smug posturing of those souls who shrug off the arts and humanities as a waste of money. I fervently believe that institutions of higher learning that diminish liberal arts programs in favor of the more quantifiable demands of business and law schools or the pressing necessities of medical and scientific research, that such short-sighted institutions are committing a grave error. In a democratic society, the arts are deeply intertwined with knowledge and progress. Digging up earth from one corner of a foundation to bolster up another might provide short-term relief, but as any building contractor can tell you, sooner or later, such an edifice is sure to collapse. How did we end up in this tug of war anyway? When was it decided that the sciences and the arts were adversaries? I myself come from a family of left-brainers. 2 siblings are in computer sciences, another has a chemistry degree, and my father broke the race barrier in the rubber industry in the early 50s as the first African-American research chemist at Goodyear Tire and Rubber. Our house was littered with scientific paraphernalia. And if I got stuck in math homework and asked my dad for help, he'd whip out his slide rule. I bet many of you don't even know what a slide rule is, but trust me, it was daunting. And he would demonstrate 3 different ways to solve for x. Even though I was in 5th grade, I wouldn't study trigonometry for many years and didn't even know how to spell cosine. I might not have fully realized it at the time, but my father was trying to show me that there can be several different ways to assess and interpret a situation and multiple approaches to a solution. Math could have different points of view, just like characters in a Shakespearean play. The interconnectedness of all knowledge. Perhaps this early lesson also shaped an encounter I had years later on an overcrowded train pushing through snowbound New England. We were squeezed in 3 to a 2-seater bench, so it seemed only natural to strike up a conversation with my neighbor. And after the usual chit-chat, wow, what a snowstorm, all the flights canceled, gotta get to Boston anyhow, etc. He asked me what I did for a living. I hesitated before answering, I'm a poet. Silence. And what do you do? I retorted. The same hesitation until he replied, I'm a microbiologist. And then he blurted out, I usually don't tell people that. They just freeze up and say something like, gee, that's heavy. As if I was going to ask them to recite the periodic table. And I said, that's pretty much how people react when I tell them I'm a poet. So we had a good laugh, and then I suggested, okay, let's give it a shot. Explain to me what your research is like, and I'll tell you what I'm working on now. So we exchanged stories, and his was a perfectly poetic description of taking a walk along a strand of DNA to look out for anything that was out of place in the scenery. Those were his very words. So, some may ask, why do we need books or art or music? And we could just as well ask, why does that bridge have to be beautiful? A functional car might be necessary to get from Emory University to Stone Mountain or Forest Park, but why do you have your heart set on it being electric blue? Surely the color doesn't matter, or does it? You see, we all have imagination. We use it every day. We relish it. We would languish without our aesthetic desires. I'm going to tell you a little story now that I think really does relate to where you are sitting today, because this is a rare moment where you get a chance to reflect on your life and stop for just an instant and think where you have come from and where you are going to. One such moment occurred for me when I was just about to receive the Pulitzer Prize. And another one occurred when I was Poet Laureate of the United States, because I got to Washington and they asked me what my mission was, and I had no clue. But very, very soon people began to write me letters and tell me what my mission was. All I needed to do was to listen and open up. And I received a letter from a young mother who pleaded, and I quote, that poetry needs to be taught to very young children before they get the idea that they can't write it, don't want to write it, don't understand it. In a sense, poetry is making the language your own. And I love that statement, poetry is making the language your own, because it pertains to all of us. The mind is informed by the spirit of play, and every discipline is peppered with vivid terminology. Fractal geometry has dragon curves and packed Swiss cheese cosmologies. There are lady slippers in botany and onomatopoetic bushwhackers. Football has wingbacks, button hooks, and coffin corners. There are dog legs on golf courses and butterfly valves in automobiles. And when there are no words for what we need, we make new ones up. Drama queen, soul patch, bucket list, Google. Any top-notch university's liberal arts curriculum is geared to help its students cope with the countless changes they will confront in our rapidly accelerating civilization. Here at Emory, you have been trained in your individual fields, but you've also been exposed to a range of other disciplines and thereby encouraged to explore new ideas. Whether you end up as a politician or a painter, a novelist or nurse or neurologist, this you all have in common. You have learned how to pursue thoughts and ideas, and hopefully you have grown to love that pursuit. Now, on April 16th, 1987, came that moment I had told you about. The Pulitzer Prize Board convened in New York to announce that year's prizes, and I was standing in the middle of my kitchen in Tempe, Arizona, holding a broom. I was sweeping the floor in preparation for the surprise 40th birthday party I was going to spring on my husband that evening. And I remember that the Venetian blinds were closed, although it was high noon, since outside the day was already baking. And then the telephone rang. It was my department chair, who had just been called by the reporters. And after the news that I had won finally sunk in, and I found my voice again, I asked, "What next?" And he replied that he was setting up a press conference for 3 o'clock. And when I wailed, "But I don't know how to give a press conference," he answered with 2 words that have resonated in me ever since. He said, "You'll learn." And then he hung up. I've often thought back to that moment because it was one of those rare points in time when one feels the passage from one phase of life to another. And as with most rites of passage, I was terrified and felt wholly inadequate, and yet the protocol of the situation demanded that I act happy and confident. You might know how that feels. You might be experiencing some of that right now. You've conducted much of your studies in solitude and quiet. You've nursed your dreams and done your labor. And here you are now, in the balm of a chilly southern morning, receiving your laurels, public proof of work well done. The door has opened. What is on the other side, and how will you meet it? The simple answer, you'll learn. And so let me conclude with a poem that I think is appropriate for the moment. It's called Dawn Revisited. Imagine you wake up with a second chance. The blue jay hawks his pretty wares, and the oak still stands, spreading glorious shade. If you don't look back, the future never happens. How good to rise in sunlight, in the prodigal smell of biscuits, eggs, and sausage on the grill. The whole sky is yours to write on, blown open to a blank page. Come on, shake a leg. You'll never know who's down there frying those eggs if you don't get up and see. My congratulations to you, the class of 2013. And now, come on and shake a leg, get on up, and see the world for yourself. Congratulations.
The degrees of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science. Will the candidates please rise?
Joy and hope. I hereby confer your theology degrees with all appropriate rights, honors, privileges, and responsibilities. Congratulations to you. As the faculty and the non-college graduates march to their respective diploma ceremonies, those ceremonies will begin at the times and in the locations that are on page 7 of the program, so that Emory College parents, families, friends wishing to get a little bit closer may do so, but please allow those faculty members who are leaving the quadrangle a lane in the aisles to pass by, and wait patiently, if you would, until the gates are open before slowly walking to your new seats. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a glorious morning and a glorious number of years for all of our graduates, faculty, and staff. But now it is time to clear the way and to let the recessional begin.